links to Jack's own past. It's so authentic. It's full of that brooding Nordic atmosphere, and full of clever twists and turns. Kjell Ullerdal is actually a regular on the festival circuit in North America. He's just done the Bay Area Festival and Litquake recently, with more to come, including the Toronto Festival of Authors Crime Edition, which is going to be next June. He's been shortlisted for the Patrona Award, the CW Day Historical and Translation Daggers 3 times, and his last standalone historical thriller, The Courier, has sold over 55,000 copies in all formats. He's translated by Don Bartlett, who does Knausgård and Jon Nesbø and all the big Nordic noir greats. Okay, so next up we have The Beresford. This is by Will Carver, and we have 2 Will Carver thrillers to share with you today, and they're both extraordinary. Will Carver has developed an absolute cult following with his angry indictments of society wrapped up in original high concept thrillers. And readers actually weirdly can't get enough. Our press has called him the most original crime writer in Britain today, with comparisons to Chuck Palahniuk and Bret Easton Ellis. So this is a standalone thriller which veers slightly into horror. It's set in an old apartment building on the edge of the city, any city, where everything stays the same until the doorbell rings and then the killing begins. So we marketed this as Rosemary's Baby meets Mayhem. And it has a cast of unforgettable characters. The Beresford has just been optioned for TV yesterday at auction, with a very keen set of producers. So hopefully you'll see this on the screens in good time. And next up we have the Queen of New Zealand Crime. This is Vanda Simon. She's an award-winning author, and this is book 4 in the Sam Shepard series. So Sam is a feisty, no-nonsense Dunedin cop, fed up with misogyny on the force, struggling with personal problems. And this series has been reviewed by all of our mainstream press, with comparisons to Janet Ivanovich's Stephanie Plum and its atmospheric setting to Jane Harper. In Bound, Sam goes vigilante when her colleagues fail to properly investigate the murder of a wealthy businessman who is killed in his own home with his wife and his teenage son bound and forced to watch. It's fast-paced, it's warmly funny, it's got superb plotting and a beautifully drawn New Zealand setting. So this is a must for crime fans who love sort of setting down under. And the series really is going from strength to strength. And then we have this fabulous book. So this is one of our Nordic stars. This is Eva Björk Egg's daughter. She's not just the newest Icelandic crime fiction writer on the block, but she is absolutely smashing it. So her debut thriller, which we published last year in lockdown, The Creek on the Stairs, is the first in the Forbidden Iceland series. And it was shortlisted for 8 awards in the UK, winning the CWA New Blood Dagger, which was the first time that an author in translation has ever won this. We've sold over 60,000 copies of this series in, let's see, 15 months across all formats. And that's pretty amazing for a lockdown debut. And her trajectory is absolutely at pace, if not faster, than Ragnar Jonasson, who is our #1 best-selling author. Her chilling blend of psychological suspense and police procedural has drawn comparisons with Ruth Rendell, and she's young and incredibly promotable. So in this book, we see Detective Elma, who has returned to her hometown of Akranes in Iceland to investigate the death of a single alcoholic mother who is presumed to have committed suicide. But when they find her body on the lava fields 9 months later, it becomes a murder investigation. There's a host of suspects, including, as you might suspect, girls who lie. We have a great quote on this one from Sherry LaPena, which I think she'll help in your market. And she will also be appearing at the Toronto Festival of Authors next June. We've just bought 2 more books in this series, and she is honestly an extraordinary talent. Next up, we have a debut, another lockdown debut, Sarah Saltoon's The Source. So Sarah is an award-winning CNN journalist, and this electric debut has gone into production for a TV miniseries for one of our big channels, with a screenplay written by Irish crime writer Joe Spain. So despite being published in lockdown, we've sold nearly 20,000 copies across all formats in 5 months, which is also impressive. And the source was one of the 3 lead fiction titles for Audible's new streaming service, which launched this month, and that has given it another big kick and recreated the buzz that started around publication time. So her work as a newsroom journalist brings a staggering authenticity to this book. And honestly, her press is fresh and original, breathtaking. Our press called the source What Girl A Should Have Been and Isn't. And it's an emotive, eye-opening, absolutely nail-biting thriller that sees a young newsroom journalist sent to her hometown to investigate sex trafficking allegations that lead straight up to the top of the government and the army. And she's forced to revisit her harrowing past. Now, I know this is one of IPG's top shelf titles, so hopefully you'll see some good reviews coming for this one later this month. I think it's out there on the 1st of November. And then we have some contemporary American noir. So this is Rod Reynolds' Blackreed Bay. It's an outstanding thriller, loosely based on the Long Island serial killer. It's a breathless thriller and the first in a brand new series. So the premise here is a young woman makes a 911 call from an exclusive oceanfront community and then disappears. Detective Casey Ray and her team assume it's a domestic incident, but then the first body appears and it's not hers. So this is honestly one of the best examples of contemporary American noir that I have ever read. And Rod Reynolds is very well reviewed here and acclaimed. His latest thriller, Blackreed Bay, was longlisted for the prestigious Ian Fleming Steel Dagger alongside Ian Rankin, J.K. Rowling, Mick Herron, Michael Rowbotham. And his writing is sophisticated and really authentic. And the twists just keep on coming. When I got this manuscript delivered, I actually punched the air with one of the twists. It's that good. It was published here only a month ago, and the buzz is still going. So I think you will have fun with this one. And then we're moving to Edinburgh. And this is book 3 in Doug Johnston's The Skelf series, The Great Silence. So the premise here is 3 generations of women in the Skelf family take over the family funeral home and PI businesses, part-time PI businesses, with predictable results. This series has taken off in a massive way here, and it has won legions of fans. We've sold over 80,000 copies of this series so far in 15 months across all formats, and it's been shortlisted for the Theakston's Old Peculiar Crime Novel of the Year, Capital Crime Independent Voice, McIlvanney Prize for Best Scottish Crime Novel of the Year. It's contemporary, it's smart, it's warmly funny, full of really unforgettable characters. We have now a hashtag here, which is Skelfaholics, and we have lots of those. And the Edinburgh setting is brilliantly drawn. So Doug is one of the biggest proponents of Tartan Noir. He plays in the fun-loving crime writers band with Mark Billingham, Chris Brookmeyer, Val McDermott, etc. And they will be appearing at the Toronto Festival of Authors Crime Edition in June. And they'll be moving on from there. So watch this space. And he will obviously be doing a book event there as well. But it's been optioned for TV, and the casting has started, and I can't tell you how much I love this series, and I'm not alone. And then we are moving to Iceland again. So this is Cold as Hell, and fresh from co-writing her hit Netflix series Katla, we have Lilja Sigurdardóttir. She's one of Iceland's finest crime writers. She has won their National Crime Award 4 times and shortlisted for the Glass Key twice. So Cold as Hell is the first in a 5-book an Aurora investigation series featuring financial investigator Aurora, who returns to Iceland when her difficult younger sister goes missing. So the story plays out in the shiveringly bright Nordic 24-hour sun of Iceland. It's full of atmosphere and breathtaking suspense. Lilia has been shortlisted for multiple awards here too, including the CWA Crime and Translation Dagger, and Cold as Hell was one of 3 titles chosen by Apple for its September Thriller of the Month. So there already is a big buzz about this one. It's out at the end of this month, and Lilia is doing a tour of the UK starting from the 4th of November. And our pre-orders are at over 7,000, which actually for a book in translation is super good for us. And she will be in Toronto as well. And she is a real festival and radio and press favorite. So you can expect to see lots of attention on her and this book. This is the 5th book of Lilia's that we've published, and we have highlighted the Lilia rather than the Sigurðardóttir, so as not to alienate too many readers, and I think it's working. Okay, this is our next. This is a proof. This is our next Will Carver thriller. It's called Psychopaths Anonymous. It's out in November, and it's another mind-addling thriller featuring a psychopathic protagonist that we can't actually help falling in love with. So Maeve has it all. She's got a high-powered job, a beautiful home, a string of casual lovers, but she's also a functioning alcoholic, and she has an addiction to killing men. And when AA makes her want to drink more and she struggles to find like-minded people to share her passions, she starts her own support group, Psychopaths Anonymous, and everything goes perfectly until one of the members becomes reckless and attracts the attention of the police. And then Maeve's drinking spirals out of control and she falls in love, and it's dark and caustic and brilliantly plotted, absurdly funny, brutal, violent, and magnificent. So interestingly, Sarah Pinborough has just called it Eleanor Oliphant for crime readers. And we've had quotes in from Harriet Tice, S.J. Watson, and more. So it's another cult favorite that has just been optioned for TV by an American producer who's working with the Disney Channel. I can't actually work out how this can fit in with Disney's output, but there we are. And this is out here in November. So we'll keep you posted on the press, and we're expecting lots for this one. And now we move again to New Zealand, and this is the magnificent Paul Cleave. So he has been shortlisted or won awards worldwide for his truly exceptional thrillers, including an Edgar and an Anthony in your markets, and he has sold 11 million copies of his books worldwide. So we were truly elated to sign him earlier this year. And The Quiet People is honestly amazing. So the premise is really simple. There are 2 married crime writers who travel the publicity circuit, always boasting that they can commit the perfect murder. And when their challenging 7-year-old son goes missing, the finger is pointed straight at them. And this has got to be the twistiest, most perfectly plotted book I've ever read. And all the big crime writers are lining up to support this, including Linwood Barkley, Lee Child, Simon Kernick, S.J. Watson, Megan Gardner, S.A. Crosby. And as Tom Wood, one of our big authors here, said, you can't be a true crime fiction fan if you aren't reading Paul Cleave. And we are absolutely going to throw everything at this one. And then finally, we're off to Finland. And we are really actually so excited to be able to present this today because we acquired USA and Canada rights 24 hours ago. So this is a total drop-in. The agent was very keen to hold on to these rights, and you'll understand why in a second. So Antti Tuomainen is one of our best-selling authors by far, and his standalone dark comedy thrillers have been shortlisted for or won virtually everything going here in terms of awards. The Rabbit Factor is the first in his first ever series. It's currently in production with Amazon Studios, starring Steve Carell. And this is about Henry, who's an insurance actuary with a perfectly ordered life. He calculates everything right down to the last decimal. But when he loses his job and inherits an adventure park from his brother, he finds himself with gangsters on his tail, trying to reclaim their money, and a set of quirky employees, and then he falls in love. So this is a masterpiece of a book. It's funny and dark and twisty and tense, but it's so poignant and so full of heart. And the Times has called Anti the funniest writer in Europe, and they're really not wrong. It's the perfect book for our crazy, unpredictable times, and I think everyone will identify with Henry. So we're publishing in hardback here. We've got a Waterstones exclusive edition. We can definitely do something similar for your markets if there is a demand. We will be printing there as well, so you will have quicker access to the books. And we have a huge marketing and PR budget for this, which was part of the deal when we were able to acquire these rights. So we can, you'll see it everywhere with a bit of luck. He will also be at the Toronto Festival of Authors Crime Edition in June. So I did want to let you know that we have just doubled our marketing and PR spend in the USA and Canada, and we'll be doing everything we can to make sure that you sell lots of books. We have physical and digital proofs or finished copies of everything, and we can personalize all of our social media assets for your shops. We can supply book trailers, bookmarks, reading group questions, and anything else, including online visits from our authors or in person if we can get them over there. Pandemics notwithstanding. But a lot of them have done book groups in your markets and sort of come in from all around the world, and it's been really popular. But nothing is too much trouble. So please don't hesitate to ask for anything. And thank you very much for listening.
Thanks so much, Karen. Next up, we have Lisa Daly from Ocean View Publishing, which is one of the fastest growing indie publishers in the US. They're recognized as one of the country's preeminent independent publishers of original mystery, thriller, and suspense titles. They focus on works that exhibit a strong sense of place and setting, compelling protagonists, and supporting characters. Tension that builds through a book's narrative, seamless, gripping, and suspenseful storylines, and authenticity, making the books not just great reads, but uniquely positioned to make the transition into such media as film and television. If it's on Ocean View's list, then it should definitely be on your shelves. Lisa?
Wow, that was a fantastic lead up. So thank you very much. We are very happy to be here. So my first title today is The Necklace, and we are so excited about this book. It actually came out in September, but we are already bumping up against the second printing after just over a month. This author has gotten tons of press everywhere. He has really been the darling of Goodreads and Bookstagrammers and press all over, and there's a great reason for that. Matt Whitten is a fantastic storyteller, and in fact, this book has been optioned for film with Leonardo DiCaprio attached as producer. Matt, the author, has written for House, Pretty Little Liars, Law and Order, Medium, Homicide. I mean, like every show you love, he has written for, and he's won 2 Edgar Award nominations for Law and Order, as well as an Emmy for House. The book was blurbed like crazy by all of these big names: Lee Child, Lisa Gardner, Lee Goldberg, Meg Gardner, Steve Barry, Holly Overton, Doug Lyle, and the author has been traveling all over the country, in particular around his hometown of Los Angeles, as well as upstate New York, which is where he's from originally, and also where the book is set. This is a fantastic story. Matt actually saw a newspaper article about something similar about a decade ago, and it so stuck with him that he wanted to write a novel about it. It's about a small town down and out waitress named Susan Lentigo, who is determined to make her way from upstate New York to North Dakota. And she's driving to witness the execution of the man who murdered her daughter 20 years ago. But what she finds out along the way is that he may not be guilty after all. And so now she is racing against the clock. She's contacted the authorities. as far as they're concerned, they've got their guy. And so she does not want to see this innocent, who she thinks is innocent, man, put to death if he is not in fact guilty. And so it is really just a heart-pounding book. It has plenty of twists and turns, and it's very, very cinematic. And so you can definitely see why Appian Way and Cartel Pictures have optioned this book with Leonardo DiCaprio attached as producer. So fantastic, fantastic story. You definitely don't want to miss this one. If you're anywhere near LA, Matt will be happy to come in and do an event. As I mentioned, he has actually been touring for the last 2 months with no signs of stopping, and this book has just done fantastically well. We normally get a nice collection of reviews on NetGalley, but he has at this point almost 400 reviews on NetGalley for this book, which is insane for us. So wonderful, wonderful book. All right, so my next book is Shadow Music, written by Helene Mario. This book came out on the 21st of September, third in the Maggie O'Shea mystery series. And it is a wonderful, wonderful book. It's a compelling story of loss, vengeance, courage, and enduring love as our classical pianist Maggie O'Shea joins forces with a courageous nun to find a missing journalist and a Van Gogh that has been lost for decades. And of course, there are some bad guys. We have some ruthless Russians who have been stalking Maggie's every move. They are, of course, intent on finding the Van Gogh for themselves and eliminating Maggie and, of course, all that she holds dear. The author, Helene Mario, is, I will just say, if you love music and you love mystery, this is the perfect book for you. The first book in the series won the Ben Franklin Silver Award for Mystery and Suspense and was an Amazon bestseller. Dark Rhapsody, the second book in the series, won the Best Book Award from the American Book Fest. And these books are, you just feel on every page her love of music. All right, next we have Murder at Gray's Bridge. I love this series. Andrea Carter is an Irish author. This is the fourth in the Inishowen mystery series. I say that wrong literally every time. This series is being adapted for TV in the UK. And if you love Louise Penny, Lisa Gardner, and Agatha Christie, you will absolutely love Andrea Carter, and in particular, Murder at Gray's Bridge, which is this great sort of locked room kind of a mystery. Solicitor Benedicta O'Keefe is excited to attend the wedding of her assistant Leah at the brand new restored Gray's Bridge Hotel with its private beach and beautiful pier and fancy schmancy lobby. But the festivities are cut short with the deaths of 2 hotel guests, and Ben finds herself embroiled in this country house murder mystery where all of the guests are suspects and a deadly conspiracy unfolds. The cool thing about Andrea Carter, first of all, she is like one of the nicest people you will ever meet in your life. She is in Ireland. She lives in Dublin. And so she is happy to do Zoom events or live streams with you if you are interested in doing that. She is an Irish lawyer in real life, and her novels are all set on the remote Inishowen Peninsula in County Donegal and feature an inquisitive solicitor named Benedicta O'Keefe. Her husband is a documentary filmmaker. This is really a fantastic series. And again, this is the 4th, and we are so pleased to be publishing it. Next up is the OC. I love this series. If you don't know Doug Lyle, DP Lyle, as his pen name is, you definitely want to. This is the 5th book in the best-selling Jake Longley thriller series. If you love the laughs and the mystery of Carl Hyacin and Janet Ivanovich, this is definitely a series that you want to get into, and in particular in the OC. One thing that's really cool about DP Lyle is he actually is a forensic pathologist in real life. Around the office, we call him Dr. Death, and he is the creator and host of the Criminal Mischief podcast series. This story, the OC, takes place when Jake Longley, who's a former baseball player, is hoping for a few weeks of fun and sun with Nicole in Orange County. But Nicole's friend, who is a local TV reporter, has picked up an anonymous celebrity stalker. And the stalking gets worse and worse and worse. And suddenly the sunshine and safety of the OC seem more facade than reality. D.P. Lyle is an Edgar McCavity and Benjamin Franklin award-winning author of both fiction and nonfiction, and the OC is the 5th in his best-selling Jake Longley thriller series. He is a funny, funny guy. Ooh, this one. Okay, so Matt Coyle's Last Redemption, it was our lead title this year. This is the 8th in the best-selling Rick Cahill PI crime series. Matt Coyle is a multi-award winning author. Every year when award season comes, he's just scooping them up. He's won the Anthony, the Ben Franklin, the Seamus Lefty, San Diego Book Award. He was just named San Diego's Mystery Writer of the Year for this year, and he's got a ton of nominations as well for the Anthony, McCavity, Seamus, Lefty, Derringer, you name it. Michael Connolly said that Matt Coyle is on top of his game, and Rick Cahill ascends to the top ranks of classic private eyes. Publishers Weekly gave this book a starred review. They said contemporary hard-boiled PI novels don't get any better than this, and they are exactly right. If you love Michael Connolly or John Sanford, you are definitely going to love Matt Coyle. When Rick Cahill's best friend Moira asked him to spy on her son Luke, who's broken a restraining order, what we think is going to be just a simple surveillance gig explodes into into greed, deceit, and murder. Luke goes missing, and our PI, Rick, finds himself steeped in a high-stake fraudulent pharmaceutical research scheme. This is really a wonderful, wonderful book. You definitely do not want to miss anything by Matt Coyle, but Last Redemption will be on sale November 30th, 2021. Headshot by Otho Eskin is our next title. Otho is a fascinating guy. He's actually an attorney and a former member of the U.S. Foreign Service. And he has so much of that knowledge just infused in his Marco Zorn series. You can really tell he's a Washington, D.C. insider. So D.C. homicide detective Marco Zorn has just survived an assassination attempt when he is assigned to protect the beautiful Prime Minister of Montenegro, which is not an easy gig because a lot of people are always trying to kill her. She is definitely the known target of an assassination plot. There's lots of international politics and Washington vendettas, lots of, just politics and messiness, which is really awesome. He has a number of tools that he is willing to use, some of them legal, some of them not so legal, in order to stop the killers. And what he realizes is that he's not sure if they're facing one assassin or possibly a group of assassins on the international stage. Excuse me. Fans of David Baldacci and Daniel Silva will absolutely love this book. And Hank Phillippe Ryan, who we all know and love, called it a nail-biting thriller. That is one you definitely don't want to miss. He has done a ton of PR, especially in Washington, D.C. and New York. So I have two more quick titles. Those are our fall titles. I have two more quick titles. The first is Bucharest Dossier by William Maz. This was selected as one of 25 top shelf titles by IPG. We're super, super proud of that. This is perfect for fans of Robert Ludlum and John le Carre. I never know how to say his name. Is it Carr or Carre? This is a Born Identity who meets the spy who came in from the cold. A CI analyst who is a Romanian expat arrives in Bucharest, Romania at the start of the 1989 uprisings at the demand of his KGB mole. But he ends up becoming embroiled in this revolution that results in the massacre of thousands. Of course, nothing is as it seems. He's got to stay one step ahead of the assassins. He's got to figure out out all these different puzzles, find his lost love, track down billions that are lost in offshore accounts by Romania's tyrant, and discover the true identity of his mole. I love this author. He was actually born in Bucharest, Romania. He emigrated as a child to the US, where he studied medicine at Harvard. And he really is just a spectacularly good writer. This book just won the SIVA Award for the global thriller category. And last but not least, by any stretch of the imagination, we have Paradise Cove by David Goodwin. And I always want to say Davin because it looks like Davin, but it's actually David. David Goodwin is a fantastic writer. This is the second book in our Roscoe Conklin mystery series. It is a police procedural in this like cool, laid back island setting, which is the island of Bonaire. And there's so much wonderful, wonderful detail in this book because David is actually a scuba diver, and he has made over 30 trips to Bonaire to dive. And so he really knows that island. In this case, in Paradise Cove, a bizarre Borderlands Conklin case file when a severed leg washes up on shore, but he's figured out who it belongs to. It happens to be the nephew of a friend. He can't make any progress on the case, and he's trying every single thing he can imagine, and the body count keeps rising. This book is perfect if you're a fan of Randy Wayne White, John Sanford's Lucas Davenport series, Virgil Flowers. David is a terrific writer, and I think this series is going to be a really big one. Again, this is the second book in the series, but we are super proud of it, and I'm loving that cover. So that is it for me. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going the wrong direction. If you would like any marketing materials, you can email me at lisad@oceanviewpub.com, and ARCs are available on NetGalley and Edelweiss.
Thanks, Lisa. All right, last but not least, we have Laura Palmer, who is the fiction publisher for Head of Zeus, who is an award-winning independent publisher of genre fiction, narrative nonfiction, and children's books. They're based in London with a global reach. Head of Zeus has published 93 and counting #1 bestsellers around the world, won 21 literary prizes and 2 industry awards. All Head of Zeus writers, whether debut authors on Sunday Times bestsellers, are published in digital, print, and audio formats with a zeal that merges talent with tradecraft and technology. Laura?
Sorry about that. I was on mute and I didn't quite manage to unmute myself in time. Can you just thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. I guess you can hear me. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura. That's a very nice introduction, Chris. It makes me feel like we've achieved a lot in our 10 years of being alive at Head of Zeus, which is good. It was really nice also to hear the presentations from the other 2 publishers. They're both kind of publishing, well, particularly the Arenda Books is publishing that I follow a lot because we're sometimes competing for the same authors in the UK. So it was really interesting to hear about all the great work she's doing. And also I think we won the Crime Mystery Publisher of the Year award this year, which Karen had been winning, had won it last year. So I feel like we are on the same track. So it was nice to hear from our comrade. So I'm going to talk to you about the books that we're publishing through the US with Trafalgar Square. And there's some books that won't be included in this presentation, but I think you know of. So we're the publishers of Robert Ludlum's Bourne books, which I know do very well for you. We don't always manage to get the US rights in the bigger UK crime authors that we acquire, but we've made a real commitment to try and get US rights in more titles, and also a commitment to try and become the UK publishers for more US based authors, which is something that we've done with our first author that I'm going to present to you, which is Dana Stabenow. So I can't actually see the presentation, but that's okay. So I'm just assuming that you have the Edelweiss AI presentation in front of you, because that's the order that I'm going to be doing my presentation. So first up is Disappearance of a Scribe by Dana Stabenow. So I think you all know Dana quite well. She has won the Edgar Award, so she's quite well known in the US. She's best known for her very successful series of Alaska Set Mysteries starring Kate Shugak. That series is a regular feature on the New York Times bestseller list, and we do pretty well with her in the US. We tend to sell between 8,000 to 12,000 copies through North America. So as you can see from this one, though, this is something quite different. This is a crime novel set in ancient Egypt in the time of Cleopatra. It's second in a series, but you can read them in any order. And fans have loved this. Obviously, it's set in a very different period, but it still has everything that makes Dana's writing so successful. It's hugely atmospheric, extremely well researched, and her story, as with her Kate Shugak series, is full of humor and romance and very vivid characters. This was very well reviewed in the Washington Post as well, this series. They called it outstanding, and it's building really nicely for us in the UK. So I think it will do well in your market as well. Moving on to Sebastian Fitzek, we've got 3 novels upcoming from him: Seat 7A, Amok, and Soul Breaker. Now, Sebastian Fitzek was a really exciting acquisition for us because I think he is the author on our list who has sold the most copies worldwide. So he's really the best kept secret of European thriller writers. He sold 11 million books in under 10 years. Every single one of his thrillers has hit the German top 10, and 7 of them have got to #1. So he is a really big focus author for us in the UK, and I think he has real international appeal, so he should do well over in the US as well. The target we've given ourselves is to sell 10% of his total sales between the UK and the US. So obviously you're a big part of that plan. So we've got to get to 1 million sales. It's a big, ambitious target, but I think it is possible. So the secret to Fitzek's success, I think, is that he takes kind of commonplace or weird, well, it's a commonplace scenarios, let's say, and kind of weird trivia facts, and he twists them into a totally mind-bending, page-turning psychological thriller. So in terms of readership, I think he appeals to people who like European high-concept thrillers like Michel Bussy and Pierre Lemaitre, but he's he's straightforwardly commercial and page-turner. You do not have to be a fan of translated fiction to like his books. My favorite of his novels is Seat 7A, so I'll just tell you a little bit about that one. That takes as its premise the little known fact that you should never sit down in seat 7A in an aeroplane, because it is statistically the most dangerous place to sit in a plane. That's where the most deaths happen. So he takes this premise and he spins it into a heart-pounding thriller in which a passenger's daughter is kidnapped, and this passenger is then instructed that he must either crash the plane or watch his daughter die. And I don't know if any of you have read Hostage by Claire McIntosh, and that's been everywhere in the UK lately. But if you have, then you'll know how successful this is as a plot device. I mean, everyone's on a plane, it's a closed room, someone's got to crash it. How are they going to get out of this situation? So you cannot put this book down. We made a really cool video trailer for his first book, which is called The Package, and you can view that on YouTube, and I think that will give you quite a good overview and a sense of how we're marketing the book. And we have quite a lot of marketing material for this, so please ask if you'd like it. Moving on to Graham Masterton. Again, I'll talk through all 5 books at once and sort of let you know a little bit about him as an author and how these books fit together. So you are probably very familiar with Graham Masterton. He has he was a big name horror writer in the 80s and 90s, and then he turned his talent to crime writing and wrote the Katie Maguire series for us, which was a series of police procedurals set in Ireland starring Katie Maguire. Now we've actually sold a lot of copies of the Katie Maguire series. We've sold 1.5 million copies between the UK and the US. But now Graham has returned to what he is best known for, which is his horror. And I think it's a really exciting time for horror at the moment. Horror genre is booming. Films and TV shows are featuring horror more than ever before. And Graham's return to horror is something which his fans have really welcomed with open arms, including his most high-profile fan, which is Stephen King, who has finally, after years of us asking him, given us a quote, which was to say, "God, it's good." So we're putting that on the front of all of our books now, as you can imagine. Of these 5 titles, there are 2 here which are part of a loose series. So those books are The Children God Forgot and The Shadow People. So that is book 2 and 3 in the Jerry and Jamila series. They're set in London, and Jerry and Jamila are a pair of detectives who specialize in investigating supernatural crimes. Now, these books are not for the faint-hearted. The first one, The Children of God Forgot, Jerry and Jamila investigate ghostly figures in the sewers. There's some very disturbing scenes, including eyeballs, which I won't go into here more than to say they're about eyeballs. And in The Shadow People, they are investigating a cult of cannibals who cook and kill and roast and eat their victims. So you need a strong stomach for those 2 books, but that is something that Graham Masterton's many fans absolutely love. I've been reading through the early reviews for The Shadow People, and they are full of reviewers saying that they had to read the book while hiding behind their fingers, or warning you that you can't read it unless you have a strong stomach. Nevertheless, all of these readers are giving them 5 stars. The other 3 titles are actually not new books. They are reissues of good selling horror standalones that Graham published in the 80s and 90s. And the one I want to draw your attention to, for obvious reasons, is Plague. That was written in the early 90s, but it was very prescient because it imagined a world where a pandemic has wiped out half the population. And it's a world where law and order starts to break down, and the rats of the city start to take on supernatural powers. And this did really, really well for us in ebook over the pandemic. So Graham Masterton, he does brilliantly, and he's got a very strong fan base, but yeah, not for the faint of heart. Moving on to M.K. Hill, The Woman in the Wood and One Bad Thing. So M.K. Hill's been a bit of a rising star for us in the UK. His first book, The Bad Place, was named as a Times Thriller of the Month. And his second, The Woman in the Wood, which is the one that you have here, has got lots of really nice reviews, and including from lots of our comp authors, which is really helpful. So we position him alongside authors like Mark Edwards and Katarina Diamond, and they've both blurbed this book. The Woman in the Wood is set on the British seaside, essentially, in a very kind of cozy town where you would not expect that much would happen. And it follows a washed up reality TV star who gets accused of murder. And the next book, One Bad Thing, is actually a standalone. That's not part of the same series as The Woman in the Wood. It's a standalone psychological thriller. It probably has more international appeal than The Woman in the Wood because it taps into something that I think is a kind of universal fear, really, which is, what if you did something really, really terrible when you were young? You were young and foolish, you did something terrible, you thought you'd got away with it, but you hadn't. One person knows what you did, and that person is coming back to you now, and they're trying to use that against you. It's super page turning, very twisty. And I just loved it. And it's going to get some, I think it's going to do really well with the reviewers. We haven't published it yet, but we're getting some nice indications of getting early blurbs. So this is fast paced, commercial, but well-written thrillers from M.K. Hill. Now, Leslie Thompson, you've been publishing her for a while now, and the first of these books, The Distant Dead, you will recognise, I think, as being part of the Detective's Daughter series. Now, this series is the one which stars Stella Darnell, who's a cleaner, and her sidekick, Jack, who's a train driver. They've gained quite a following in the UK from readers and reviewers, and the thing that keeps coming up again and again in the reviews is that people like Leslie's ability to create this quite unique blend of something which is at once cozy and creepy. Leslie doesn't really do blood and guts and gore, and she doesn't really do sex, so she also attracts quite a lot of Christian readers, which again might be quite relevant in the US. And her books, I mean, I think she's a wonderful writer and really quite unusual within the genre. The Distant Dead is set between a famous cathedral city in England called Tewkesbury, and that's in the present day, but it links back to a case in World War II London, and that part of the book all takes place in the Blitz, and she's brilliant at evoking London in the Blitz. Death of a Mermaid is actually Leslie's first standalone for us, and it's set also in a seaside town in Britain, different seaside town from MK Hill. We've got quite a lot of them, being an island, and this takes place in the modern day. It follows a woman who comes back to her hometown after 20 years of not speaking to her family, not engaging with any of her past. She comes back to deal with the death of her parents and also to investigate the disappearance of her best friend from her school days. And it's quite a thoughtful, interesting novel. It explores themes of Catholic guilt and the importance of family. And it's perhaps a bit more literary than her Detective's Daughter series. Next, we have Into the Woods by David Mark. Now, David is a new author to us, but he's not a new author to the world. Dark Winter was published in 2012 and became a Sunday Times top 10 bestseller. So that was his first book, and it really launched him onto the scene in the UK in quite a big way. And it looks like it sold about 4,000 copies through US book scans. So it did pretty well in the US as well. So that was his first book, and it was the first in a series of procedurals. And he went on to publish a lot of quite successful procedurals in the UK, and he got endorsements from big name UK crime writers like Val McDermid, Peter James, Mick Herron, and Martina Cole. This is his new standalone, and we have quite high hopes for it, especially in paperback. And it's a psychological thriller with lots of twists and turns about 3 girls who go into the woods, but only 2 come home. So it's a hooky premise and a twisty plot. Next, we have The Watchers by A.M. Shine. Now, this is a really interesting one. We only have a very small horror list at Head of Zeus, and until now, it's only been Graham Masterton on that horror list. So it's interesting to have A.M. Shine join the list because he's very different to Graham when it comes to horror. So if Graham Masterton's horror is about kind of blood and guts and supernatural things and monsters, The Watchers is much more about horror that is created by humanity. It's got a really creepy premise. It's about a concrete bunker in the middle of the woods that lone strangers are lured into, and then they find that there's another group of people trapped inside the bunker with them, unable to get out, and they have to figure out what's going on as these creepy people, who they call the Watchers, emerge in the middle of the night to see what they're doing. It's really well executed, and our publication in the UK has really taken off. We've had to reprint it twice to meet demand, and it's been a real hit with reviewers, particularly in the kind of horror genre press. We think it's tapped into the kind of the appetite for more modern, more creepy, more kind of slow build horror of the kind that we're seeing on our TV screens. So it's much more in tune with films like Get Out or Netflix series like Stranger Things and The Haunting of Hill House. So I think it will appeal to a much younger demographic of kind of new horror readers. Last, but certainly not least, is Into the Fire by Rachel Block. I'm quite pleased to end with her, actually, because even though I love all of my authors and I'm not supposed to have favourites, I actually do, and mine is Rachel Block. I just think she's wonderful. Her books are a blend of police procedural and psychological thriller, very much in the way that Jane Harper or Susie Steiner have positioned their books. She has a kind of haunting, atmospheric, lyrical quality to her writing. And I think this makes her books really memorable. She really stands out in a crowded field of crime writing. She's the author on our crime list that gets the best and the most consistent reviews from the traditional press. So not just from the crime reviewers and not just from bloggers, but also from kind of UK broadsheets like The Times and The Telegraph and so on. And it's quite rare for a crime writer to get those reviews, and not just to get them, but to get them with every book. She also comes festooned with endorsements from authors like Erin Kelly, Victoria Selman, Githa Lodge, and A.S. Hatch. I think she's the kind of storyteller that actually crosses out of genre. So she's the crime writer that I would most likely give to readers that don't just read crime fiction, but that perhaps are more likely to read mainstream general fiction or literary fiction. So she's definitely in that crossover space. And I think if we get her publishing right, then we could achieve an awful lot with her. We haven't got there yet. Her sales in the UK and I think in the US as well are not, they're quite modest at the moment, but I think she's one that we'll keep building and we'll keep supporting and we'll keep marketing, and then we'll get there. Oh.
Thanks, Laura. That was great. Thanks, everybody. Karen from Miranda, Laura from Head of Zeus, Lisa from Ocean View. It was really great. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I'm going to put my email in the chat. Should you have any questions for any of our presenters today, I'm happy to pass those on. Thanks for joining. Bye all.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Thank you.